Now, please help me pronounce your name again. It's Koula.
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 Koula. Yes, it's a Greek name. It's tricky,
Koula,
but
but
yeah.
it's a great name, honestly. And before I ask you any questions, I need to tell you, you asked me about our Facebook group the other day when you interviewed me. One of our admins, he says he had the biggest crush on you when you were still working in South Africa. And I told him, you can't tell me this because I am going to bring it up in the interview and I'm going to
Okay, well, that's perfect. Do that in I do not mind. Yeah.
Next time you see us post stuff and tag all the admins in the post, you can tell your husband, you see that guy there?
Yeah. Oh, he had a similar experience. My husband went to Dubai on a work trip. He's in the cattle industry and worked with a farm manager there, South African. And he was asking my husband about his family. And I said, Mary, Koula from Phyffer. And my husband said yes. And he also said, I had the biggest crush on her when I used to live in South Africa. So my husband had a good laugh about that and never let him forget about that. So
I think we all the guys back then, and I'm talking about 20 years ago, went through our 5 of them crushes. I mean, for me, it was Nicole Fox, I think. And then I used to work night shift. So I would call in, and I think she had, I can't remember the show she had, but I would call in at 5 a.m. in the morning to compete in whatever competition she was throwing. And I won a 50-cent CD once. Like
very cool.
50 cent just came out.
Yeah.
I've only ever liked one single song, like the first single he ever brought out, and I won the album. I was like so chuffed. But anyway, that's enough of our childhood crushes. Tell us a bit about yourself. Now, obviously, everything is online. It's there. You've got your own personal Wikipedia on your webpage. It's koulabudler.com. And they can read all about you, about your portfolio, your history, your interest. And I'm going to be getting into a bit of that in a minute. But how about you introduce yourself to the Oorsee community?
Sure. Well, my name is Koula Budler. I am from Joburg originally. My husband and I moved to the States about 12 years ago. Prior to us leaving for the USA, I worked for 5FM for about 8 years. And then I went to 94.7 Highveld Stereo, did a lot of voiceovers for a lot of different companies in South Africa, and then hosted several different TV shows through the years. The most recent one before we left South Africa was called All Access, which was like a red carpet lifestyle show. We ended up winning a South African Film and TV Award for that show, which was a lot of fun because I would travel to New York or LA to interview movie stars and cover Fashion Week. And then we moved to Texas and life changed pace a lot. And so the last 12 years has just been kind of figuring out what that new life looks like. You mentioned my website, which is very kind of you. The last 6 years of my life has involved raising 2 sets of twins. So I have not touched that site in a very long time. And that's why. So it needs some work.
Yeah, I've stopped quoting stuff from the internet. I made that mistake with Spookful on my very first interview. I mentioned how many albums they brought out, and they're like, no, it's actually 3 more than what the total that I gave them. And so someone wasn't updating Wikipedia anymore, so I stopped.
Yeah. And it's unfortunately just one of those things where like that is not. I just haven't had time in the day to sort that site out. But yes, so we live in Aledo, Texas, which most people have never heard of. It's a tiny little town, which is just outside of Fort Worth. We'd initially moved from Johannesburg to Fort Worth, which is next to Dallas, kind of like Joburg and Pretoria. They have a similar relationship. They share an airport, but both cities do not want to get confused with each other and for people to think if you're from Fort Worth to mistake it with Dallas and vice versa. Yeah, so we've been here about 12 years now. We moved here for my husband's work. He's involved in the cattle industry. He loves cows and bulls more than any other human being I know. And he just felt it's a bigger market here for the work that he was doing. So that's how we ended up in Texas, was just it's cattle country.
I'm pretty sure where you're staying is not like Joburg. It's not like you need to lock your doors and at every traffic stop.
No, well, Dallas is becoming a little bit like that. I mean, Dallas is a beautiful, big, bustling city, but that's about an hour's drive from here. And unfortunately, with the size of the city, does come some crime. Where we are, yeah, people are very, very chilled. But to the point where like common sense sometimes gets lost along the way. So no one locks their cars at night. But then we do have teenagers from time to time who walk around the neighborhood and will just check and see if car doors are open. And if you've left anything in your car, it gets stolen, and then people are surprised. So, you know, I still keep that bit of South Africa with me. I think where I'm overly paranoid about locking everything.
We tried like shaking it. It started when we left Cape Town. We went to we lived in the UK for a few years, and I often forgot the keys outside in the outside door, and then someone like through the night would throw it through the letterbox for me, and I was like, oh my goodness, we could have been dead. Someone could have killed us, but it's just safer in other countries. And yeah, in Australia, we've got crime. I mean, my wife works for the government here, and she often sees the darker side of the first world country. But and then when there's an incident in your neighborhood, people are always very shocked. And I'm like, in South Africa, that's a Tuesday. You know, it can be worse. So don't, yeah. But I want to say, you're not the first person in Texas that I've interviewed. I've actually interviewed a lady about a year ago, Ereline Lambrecht, and she's got a bakery there. But one of the things that I've been told about Texas, in front of every yard is an F-150. Is that true?
Yes, my husband. Well, yeah. So I have a minivan because of all the kids and all the car seats. But my husband, the first thing he bought when we got here was an F-150. He just had to.
Is it the Raptor? Tell me, is it the no?
Is it what? I'm sorry.
Is it the F-150 Raptor?
I wouldn't even know. He had an accident a few years ago, and it is no longer. So now he's in a company car.
It's an F-100 now.
Yeah, it's gone. But yeah, I'm proud.
I'm fascinated with big trucks. I don't know a thing about cars. I know like nothing, but it just when we moved to Australia, they've got a problem here with tailgating. So I'm not talking about parked around a rugby field where everyone watches the rugby. I'm talking about people driving on top of you, and if you drive something bigger, the chances are good they're not going to do that. Right. So I'm going way. I'm fascinated. My wife always says the moment that we have the money, we are traveling to Texas. She just wants to go and eat steak somewhere.
Oh, she would love it. And there's definitely a South African feel to it in terms of all of that. So yeah, she's on the right track there.
Well, thank you for that. Now, what I'm trying to understand is, so you had a great career running. You were interviewing, and I read online on your outdated website that you've been interviewing Liam Neeson and all kinds of actors. You were on a roll, and that suddenly just stopped. What happened?
Well, we moved. So Texas was the place that was best suited for where my husband needed to set up his business and where his contacts were. And so ideally, East or West Coast would have been better for me. I did initially work with an entertainment lawyer when we moved over here, who got me signed to a pretty high-profile agent in Hollywood, who was convinced that he could set me up with work despite me being based in Texas, that it would be easy enough to travel, you know, that he would get it figured out. That whole negotiation process took the best part of a year. The agency was called Octagon Entertainment, and they represented quite a few high-profile people. At that time, they had orchestrated Arsenio Hall's TV comeback. He was a talk show host. They had Piers Morgan, who I know is controversial, but he was one of their people on their books. Ivanka Trump was another one who they represented. And so they were pretty big names. And so after about a year of negotiating with them and me signing with them, the company collapsed about a month later. And so people who were on their existing portfolio were kind of distributed between where some of the different agents went, and they didn't really know what to do with me because I just started with them. And so I was kind of left without anything. And that was a deflating feeling. It just wasn't meant to work out. It's just one of those things. But
you were in the best place where you could possibly be with your children and being a mother.
Well,
So
yes, at that stage there were no kids, so that was kind of where I thought like I could work this thing. I applied to every single radio station in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Everything is automated here, which I only learned out in hindsight. So you upload your CV. And I think just because my qualifications didn't exactly check the boxes of, how their systems filter things, I just didn't hear back from anybody. And so I felt like I knocked on so many doors for years and years and years. Eventually, I was working for a marketing agency in Fort Worth. And through that, I built up contacts at some of the radio stations in Dallas. I got the okay because he knew where my heart was and where I wanted to end up. And I said to him, is it okay if I reach out to this guy at this Dallas radio station? Because he'd always said, I've got an open door with this job. They were grateful to have me there, but they understood where I wanted to go. So whenever I felt the time was good, they would gladly release me. So I emailed this guy at the Dallas station and I said, look, you know me from this marketing agency. This is actually what my background is. Could we set up an opportunity to chat? Because I just needed a human being. Every time I tried to upload things through websites, I was just getting mad thing. Not even for voiceover companies. No one will respond to you. You cannot call anyone for voiceover representation. It's email only, and that's it. Yeah. And so I got a job at CBS Radio in Dallas, which I worked at for about 8 months, I think. But it was a very different format. All the radio shows were pre-recorded, which I wasn't used to. And you would just sit, I was running between 3 different radio stations at the time. Everything was pre-recorded. It was just automated. And I had to sit and make sure the computers were running and just initial off after each ad was being played. And it was kind of like a very soulless experience. And I had been prepared to start from the bottom and work my way up. That was not an issue, but this was just not something I was prepared to drive like 2 or 3 hours in traffic to either way, to get to something that I wasn't really enjoying. So I just got to a point where I was like, okay, I've tried. This is just working. This door is for me. And so it was trying to figure out where to from there.
Yeah, and it's a technology changed. I mean, so what I'm understanding, what you're telling me is that you were very good at being put on the spot for an interview and just making it sound good, making it sound professional. And suddenly you need to, when you came back into the game and like you said, everything's pre-recorded and you need to learn the new way of things. Now, how did you end up from where you were at then with Star FM?
Oh, with 919. So Karen Dupree, who's the station manager of 919, used to be one of my managers at 5FM years ago. And so the radio stations in South Africa work on yearly contracts when it comes to presenters. They run from the 1st of April to 31st of March every year. And I woke up to a lovely WhatsApp from her a few months ago saying, are you interested in getting back on radio? And I was like, this is what I've been waiting for 12 years, because I tried to keep those South African connections as well. I'd let everyone know that we were moving here years ago, and that if they ever wanted people to do interviews in New York or LA, it was easier for me to travel to there than sending someone to South Africa, and things just did not work out. So it was this message that just arrived in my WhatsApp inbox. And it took me all of about a second to reply, yes, of course, I'd be interested. So she's been really kind and being very flexible with the show and what it's all about. I wasn't sure. She wants there to be a bridge between South Africans. Everyone in South Africa has a relative or a friend who's overseas. And so to kind of be the bridge between those two. And so it's been an interesting trying to marry those ideas on air, without offending South Africans who are in Joburg, who can't move, for whatever reason, trying to just make it a comfortable ground of not being in your face. People have enjoyed success overseas. Yes, South Africa is also still a good place to live, and trying to find a comfortable place for those two.
Yeah, we've been personally, since I launched the app, I've been dealing with a lot of those topics. And I've even had discussions with high-end South Africans, if I can call them that, which is very well known in the community. They run huge organizations, some of them political organizations, saying, well, make sure that you don't encourage South Africans away from South Africa. Well, that was never the idea. The idea was to preserve South African traditions. Now, you can't always preserve the language. You would know, moving to a place like America where the accent alone is quite intimidating, your children will eventually be American. And
well, they sound like full-on Texans already, just from being in school. Yes.
My son was Suid-Afrikaanse and we left. He was 2, and then it took him 6 months, and he was running around with a little British accent. That broke our hearts. No offense to the British, but yeah. And then he was, what was he, 5 when we came here, and now he's an Aussie, and it's remarkable seeing the transition. But it's from our end, we try and keep the traditions alive, because there's beautiful traditions among South Africans. The way we raise our children, the respect that we put back into them. Because I work in education, and I've seen firsthand in the UK and in Australia where the education system is very different from South Africa, and they give a lot of freedom to children to make their own decisions, which is great. But there's also, in my own opinion, and people are welcome to disagree with me, children don't have the wisdom to make certain decisions until they more develop, until they teenagers or adults. And let's talk about you as a person. Now, you're an ultra marathon connoisseur.
It has been at this stage. Yeah, so, what do you want to know about running?
Yeah, so you've run how many ultra marathons?
I have not kept track of them, because you have to run ultra marathons to qualify for comrades and also get the distance in. And I'm just one of those people who don't keep track. But of those, the training runs, comrades, I've run 8 of them and finished 7. The one that I didn't finish was the first time I flew back from the States to run it, where I kind of figured I would have jet lag, but I hadn't factored how badly I would have jet lag. And so I hadn't slept for 3 nights leading up to the race. And I was desperate for some rest before race day, because I was worried I was going to trigger a heart attack if I tried to run on no sleep. So I had like a quarter of a sleeping tablet the night before the race, and it made my legs like lead. I could not move them day. So I thought, well, I've flown halfway across the world. I need to just go as far as I can. My time was just getting slower and slower. So eventually I got stopped. That was an up run, and they have Hollywood, which is a famous hill right near the up run, where you run straight up for over 2 kilometers, and they have a camera at the top waiting for you and a cutoff line. And so I made it to about 80 Ks. I can't even remember what the distance is. Yeah, and then got stopped. So that was soul destroying, but I came back the next year and I finished it to show that race. So yeah, the goal was to run comrades again this year. And then I got something called plantar fasciitis in December in my feet. So that kind of derailed it. I've only just got those right. So I just started training this week again, and hopefully I can do comrades next year.
Yeah, I love running, and me and my wife both, and it's something we do a lot, but not 80 Ks. I mean, I do a 10K and I'm like, wow, I just did a 10K. It's amazing. But yeah, and I used to be a full-time sports photographer in South Africa. This is 10 years ago, and I covered things like the 2 Oceans, African X, which it's also, I don't know what sort of marathon that it's a trail run, but it's over a course of 3 days. And each day is like 120, and it's 130, and then it's like say 110 on the 3rd day. And they would drop me off in these remote locations in the mountains with a camera, and I'm sitting there waiting for these runners to come past, and then I need to run back to the venue. So through those few activities, I managed to not to become real fit, but fit enough to at least hold a 10K. So you're putting me to shame when you're saying stuff like, yeah, you gave up after 80 Ks. You did fine. So you say you're currently on a contract. Now, what is your are you finishing after this first year, or are you going to continue on? And then what is your goals looking forward? Maybe getting a bit into the American market?
Well, yeah, it's kind of we'll wait and see how things go with 919. I'm not sure. It's a juggle time-wise. Just my husband travels a lot for work, so he's often overseas, which leaves me with the kids and not much support around here.
But he's overseas now.
He's in Australia now at the moment, actually. You are, well, like in the very rural areas. They were at a sheep farm yesterday, and then, like he's at Rockhampton. I don't know where he is.
Yeah,
No, he was
that's a place.
Yes, exactly. So that's kind of how I don't even try and remember because he's in different places all the time. So just with the kids and all the sports that they're involved in and trying to find time to do the radio show with the time difference is it's quite intense. So like 2 hours was manageable on a Saturday. I'm normally up by 4:30 on a Saturday morning. The show starts 6 a.m. my time for it to go out 1 p.m. South African time.
Wow.
It still means I usually get babysitter for our kids, because they have basketball that we like I finish here at 8 a.m. and their basketball starts at 8:30. So they need to be dressed and ready to go. And so it's just like the logistics behind all of that are like a huge juggle. So, and I do run my own business here too. I run a home bakery. So I specialize in wedding cakes and just very fancy bespoke cakes for people.
We'll put the link for that in somewhere in the description.
Thank you. So that was started by default, and that's a whole other story. But the business is doing really well for itself, and so I've been trying to find the balance between the two. You know, the radio station is more for personal fulfillment. Radio is my first love, so I kind of do it almost on a volunteer basis for them, and I just do it for the satisfaction of doing radio shows. So I don't know where to from here. I think once my younger twins, they're just stopping now this week for their long 3.5-month, 4-month summer holiday. So they'll start preschool again September, and that'll be their last year of preschool. And then they'll be in kindergarten, which will be more regular hours, longer days, which might give me more time to think about my career. The beauty of the bakery was just that it was something I could do while the kids are at school. They have so many like holidays here all the time, and the younger kids' school is only 4 mornings a week for a few hours. It was really hard to try find a full-time job with trying to juggle all of that on my own. Yeah. So I kind of feel like once they're in elementary school, that things will be a bit more manageable in terms of trying to think about my career again. Unfortunately, childcare is just so expensive here. And so when I had the first set of twins and I was working full-time, we had a nanny at our house. When I was at the office, I was working half the day in the office, then being with the kids in the afternoon, working at night again. It's as most immigrants know, just to juggle when you don't have family around. So
yeah, I'll get to that. What did you say about your first set of twins? So I know you got 4 children. Twins
22 months apart. We had 4 kids under 2, and the second set was born the week before everything got locked down with COVID. So all our plans of having family to come out from South Africa to help us kind of got derailed. It was a time in my life I would not care to revisit again, because it was basically like my husband and I with the kids.
I saw some of the photos and the videos. I saw your husband speaking fluent Xhosa with your kids, and tell me you're teaching them the language as well.
Yes, well, he does that little rhyme in isiXhosa with them every time if he's at home, when he brushes their teeth with them, and just to help them get the feel of the clicks. Like, I don't know, they learn Spanish at school. They'll probably know a few Xhosa words. We kind of use Afrikaans as our like secret language when we don't want the kids to understand what we're saying, as I'm sure many South Africans do, just, you know, when they don't want other people to understand what they
use it in public.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, we take advantage of it. And the kids love rugby. We watch the World Cup. Like they can sing Hikomi Boka. They don't really know what they're saying, but they know the words to it or what they think are the words. So yeah, it's quite cute.
And how old is your older 2 twins?
They just turned 6 last weekend. So they're 6,
and then you got 2 going up to kindergarten, so that makes them 4.
Yes, yeah, 6 and 4.
That's close. Now, you're speaking about childcare. Now, this is sort of where the video was supposed to go. But look, we just we let it flow. But these are the sort of information that people in South Africa that's looking to move abroad find really helpful, is things like childcare, struggling to get the visas and all those sorts of things. But even here in Australia, we found childcare ridiculously expensive. Now, in South Africa, and I remember it was 1,500 rands. I swear it was per month. I'm almost certain it was per month to have Ludwig, my eldest, in care. and he was one, turning two, and then we went to the UK, and they're like, yeah, that's now £600 a month. I'm like,
Yeah.
or was it per week? I need to actually, I can't.
Yeah.
It was like mind blown, and we basically worked or I worked to keep my son in care, and it was either that or I look at after him at home, because my wife was working for the government at that stage. She was the one that got the visa, and the tables have turned now a bit. So now we both work now, and I would say the Australian salaries is better than the salaries in the UK, but the childcare is still crazy expensive. If it wasn't for permanent residency, we would be paying up probably around $2,000-3,000 a month now, Oz dollars, for care. What's the pricing look like in America, if I'm out?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, for 4 kids, it was out of control. So I just had them in like they call it a Mom's Day Out program, which is because where we are, it's pretty rural. There aren't a lot of like full-time daycare, and these run our churches where it was just a few hours a week that you could send the kids there. So they were going Tuesday, Thursday mornings from 9 to 2. And now I forget what that was. That was a few years ago. Now with the 2 girls in preschool, and they're only in school for 9 months of the year because the other 3 months is the holiday. But for 9 months, you're looking at about $10,000 for both of them. And that's from Monday to Thursday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m.
And the education itself, once they hit,
once they get to school, then it's built into your property taxes. So it's free, but you get zoned depending on where you live. What area you live in is the school that you'll go to. And so there's a lot of competition to get into the good area so that you'll be zoned to a good school. And then those areas come with higher property taxes. So we're looking at about $20,000 a year is what we pay on our property taxes.
And that's with 2 kids now in the big school, if I might call it that. And then you've got 2 coming out to kindergarten, which is not quite public schooling just yet. They need to still go another year, I guess.
They'll enter their life of preschool from November, and then kindergarten is the year after that. And kindergarten is actually part of the elementary school. So it's like the grade. But so it doesn't matter how many kids you have once they get into the school system. From kindergarten through to 12th grade, you're just paying your property taxes. Which is still a lot, but then you get to university and the cost of university here. Like we've got university savings plans for them already, because the university you're looking at, I don't even know what a year, $30,000 a year per kid starting. Like I was
about to say, it sounds like you can have a couple more twins, but then when you hit the university.
No, I know it's frightening. And they've got a whole student loan debt here, which is a huge issue. A lot of people do take out loans, but they have these impossible interest rates. And that is a problem. Like we're chipping away and doing what we can. And even then our financial guy was like, your kids are still going to be short. So I'm like, we're doing the best we can for 4 kids.
Tell your husband
way
to come to Australia, because as far as I understand, as soon as you get your citizenship in Australia, the government helps every single one that finishes high school to go to uni if they choose to do so. A lot of the kids here, so it's also in the form of, I guess, a student loan, but they've got programs to help them pay that back after they start working. But what I've found here, a lot of the kids here chooses to go do an apprenticeship. So they'll become electricians, and because the tradesmanship in Australia is huge. It's one of our biggest industries. But it sounds like
he just said we don't push them to get a degree if that's what they want to do. Good, like the trades are good work too. We'll just encourage them whichever direction they want to go in. But there's a massive market for the trades here too.
Well, look, you're still well over a decade away from that. And it sounds like you are doing an amazing job at running your own business, being can I call you a DJ?
Yeah.
Doing the radio show and still being a mum. It sounds like hard work. I mean, we've got 3 kids. We're quite busy, but this is just a hobby. It's a passion. My wife works full time, and she sometimes comes home crazy hours. We just share the load. I'll be cooking, and then Right now, I don't want to turn my camera, but I'm actually folding up laundry. But
you guys are moving in a few days, so that's
it's full on at the moment.
Yeah.
Koula, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for waking up early to do this interview. I really appreciate it, and I'm pretty sure there were loads of South Africans that were curious to know what happened to you. Where were you?
Still here, but yes, life is different. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been lots of fun chatting to you, and all the best with Oorsee. It sounds like you're onto a really good thing there. And yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, we do try, and I must say, the Facebook group that's backing the app is pretty much in a way the foundation for everything that's happened so far. And I mean, we're using social media to market new social media. It works. It sounds.
Yeah.
Any advice you want to give to South Africans that's looking to move to Texas? I'm not going to generalize the entire America, because I know it differs from state to state. I've interviewed several different South African Americans over there.
The summers are hot. If you have the opportunity to travel here prior to moving, we just looked on Wikipedia, and we'd been here in the winter, and we thought, well, the summers look similar-ish to South Africa. The summers are like debilitatingly hot, where yeah, you have to know what you're in for that, or it can be a massive shock to the system. You can be outside for 1 or 2 hours in the morning, and then you're at like 43, 44 degrees and baking the rest of the day. People are very friendly here. They love the South African accent, and it's an easy place to live if you don't mind the extremes of hot in summer and extremes of cold in the winter. It can get down to -10, -15, and snow and ice. But yeah, just do your research when it comes to the different kinds of visas. There are so many just different facets. Spousal visas that allow you to work, ones where you're not permitted to work. It's kind of a minefield. We trusted our immigration attorneys to do that for us, and they dropped the ball. And so like we landed ourselves in hot water. But I think, you know, a lot of people have got similar stories where things just work out differently to how you planned. But if you want to make it work, you'll make it work. So yeah.
Well, thanks for that. And I hope there is a couple of our Oorsee community that can really use that advice. Thank you so much. And
Okay,
yeah, I'll put your business link in the description for those people that's in your neighborhood that want to use your services. Again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Steven. All the best.